Preparing to live stream. All right, I think it's setting up. So just a little introduction. Me and Amy are we run this kind of DIY independent venue called the Tiny Cupboard. We're very, very small. We're just tiny, and we do a lot of cultural events, whether it be philosophy, poetry, comedy, like a lot of like underground, I guess, hipster stuff. And we're starting to do more like intellectual kind of events. We actually hosted a Yang Gang meeting. What was it?
It was like a
meetup.
Yeah.
Back like 6 months ago or something, and it was really fun. And we enjoyed being part of the space. We really are excited to have Jonathan here because he's awesome. What he supports is awesome. He's an awesome guy, really impressive, really just kind of inspiring guy all around. And it's super cool that we can have him on tonight. How this is going to work is Jonathan's going to talk for however long he wants, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Then we're going to do a Q&A. We can ask him anything we want about his policies, about generally what's going on, whatever really comes to mind. You can ask him, and we'll kind of moderate it. So, Jonathan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, whenever you're ready, you can start.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. Congrats. I hope you're taking care and staying safe. I'm Jonathan Herzog. I'm running for Congress on the west side of Manhattan in South Brooklyn. We just had the first televised debate in the history of the district. So check it out at NY-10.com, or you can watch it on Paget's YouTube channel or the Zach and Matt show. I'll be hopping on their streams as well to kind of check in. Because we just aired. It was the first debate in the history of the district.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Cool.
We're facing a 30-year incumbent, and we're bringing Yang Gang ideas and a universal basic income. And yeah, it's great to be here.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so happy to answer any questions, have a conversation about anything y'all are interested in or thinking about, or anything in particular.
So we got a few comments already in the chat. We got something from Chris. I'm going to read it out loud because I don't know if Chris, I don't know if your audio is working. Chris says, "Hi, Jonathan. I'm a fan of your policies, especially those that are the most forward thinking when it comes to the digital age. During the debate, I think that the other candidates running conveyed a particular sense of political experience and presence. As one of the youngest labor activist musicians working in New York City, I know firsthand the challenge of being taken as seriously as my older labor activist colleagues. How do you plan to respond to such skepticism that you would inevitably face if elected as our US congressman, whether it be other politicians, the press, special interests, and more?"
So is this in the context of age? Is that the question?
I believe it is. Yes. An experience.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, totally. So I met, I remember Cameron Cassidy a number of years ago when I joined the founding team that built Yang's campaign out in Iowa. I think he was 17 at the time. The Stoneman Douglas kids didn't choose to be 17 or 16 when a gunman shot up their school. But they've made more change and made more impact on our policy than the politicians who are in their 70s who've sat there for 2 or 3 decades. And that's the reality. I mean, our country was founded by people who were 20-something. And I think it's as audacious to think that you should serve in Congress at all, given that we're all just people, than to think that at any age, it's any more audacious than another. And I'm super proud of all the work I've done with bringing universal basic income from obscurity and anonymity to the mainstream, to popular support, from working as a civil rights organizer and legal advocate with the senior advisor and counselor to the Attorney General's office, and working in campaign finance reform. I think it's really a measure of what you do and the kind of change and impact you have, and not your age. And I think everyone in the context of this race would appreciate, I think, being judged by their character and their capacity for change than their age. I'll be the current age of the incumbent in 2068. And I think part of our collective aspiration is to build a country, to build a system where we can retire with dignity.
Thank you. Eugene, and does anyone have a question? You can pop it in the chat or you can say it out loud. We have tons of questions we can ask. Okay, Chris has another question. If elected, how would you respond to the Republican opposition that will undoubtedly fight against your most progressive policies?
Yeah, well, I think what's been so incredible about this entire movement is we've seen it bring together conservatives, Republicans, liberals, Democrats alike. It's brought together the left and the right in a way that we haven't seen for generations. So when you have Mitt Romney and Justin Amash and members of the Trump administration coming out in favor of ideas like a version of a basic income, it just goes to show, again, it's about ideas, and it's about ideas that are just beyond ideology. So I think if we actually put forth real solutions that aren't just traditional kind of democratic talking points, we'll get them on board. And we're seeing it as much right now.
Can you give us some context in how you got into working with Andrew Yang and just kind of getting into politics?
Yeah, well, I came across Andrew Yang in early 2018 when he launched the campaign, and I said, we have to do everything we can to make this man president, because he's the only one calling out the real problems we're facing and the only one with a real path forward. So I dropped everything and moved out to Iowa for him when he asked me to, after organizing and volunteering for months on campus. And really just built from the ground up. It was just a team of the scrappiest people from all walks of life who recognized that our country is falling apart, that liberal democracy is being torn to shreds, and our government has been asleep at the switch. So it's literally like if you saw the team of me and the 5 other people who were building this thing from the from the bottom up, when the campaign was bankrupt, it had no polls, no money, no media, no nothing. It was just people with this burning obsession and passion and deep, deep sense that there's no one in the fucking wings. No one's here to save us. And so when you come in contact with enough people who are at these tables, in these rooms, in these positions of power, you come to realize that we have to build it ourselves.
We have 2 questions in the chat. One from Eugene. Hope I'm saying that right. Has there been any polling? Do you know which areas or population group that need more outreach?
So there's no polling. In New York congressional races, there's never been a competitive primary for 3 decades in this race. The incumbent was appointed to the seat in 1992 after his predecessor died a day before the primary through vacancy committee. So it's like petitions you get to get on the ballot. But we only need 2%, 15,000 votes to win the seat. This is in the district that's the gayest district in the country, the biggest LGBTQ community, including home to Stonewall. This is a district that covers Wall Street, the world's financial capital, but 1 in 6 people live in poverty. So it is the ground zero for the winner-take-all economy, ground zero for the forces of financialization, for automation, and for this new era of income inequality and extreme polarity in our system. So we just need 2% of all people to wake up to the reality that this is not sustainable. Up to 40% of people have fled the district on parts of the Upper West Side. And it just, again, a testimony to the fact that 1 in 5 of the dead, of the nearly 120,000 people that are dead, are New Yorkers, because the city is falling apart. So we can get this done. We have 5 or 6 days. And if we just wake up 15,000 people to this fact that we can actually do a whole lot better for ourselves, we'll win.
We have a question from Andrew. At what point did you decide that you had to run for Congress?
Yeah, I think it came after the first debate, the first presidential debate around that time in the summer. I just felt like, again, we have to build this from the ground up. And this is just home, 10th district, the west side of Manhattan, South Brooklyn. It's just home. And so I looked up and I saw, well, here's a number 2 House Democrat, the chair of the judiciary, who's never faced a competitive primary challenge in his entire career. We can get this done. And so it just over time made me realize that the way laws are passed in the United States is you have to have a majority in Congress. A president, the executive, is not enough. And we saw this in the Obama years very, very clearly, where we need to have a majority in both houses to actually support this agenda and this vision. So yeah, just basically getting the question over and over, well, like, how do you get Congress to pass the agenda? How do you get Congress to pass this? Which is what you heard over and over and over again. It's like, well, we got to do it ourselves because they're not gonna do it for us.
So we have a question from Chris. Do you feel bipartisanship is most important, or is not compromising on progressive policies most important? Or are you somewhere in between, or does it depend on the issue?
I think it's honestly kind of a false choice. It's this kind of false narrative we've been, forced to accept because Democrats and Republicans alike for decades have been selling the same agenda, just packaged differently. So I think it's all kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. And you just realize that our systems are falling apart. We couldn't even test or contact trace in a global pandemic. We didn't have PPE. We had no inventory. We didn't have basic medical supplies or masks. I mean, this is liberal democracy, the American way, falling apart. And people are looking to techno-authoritarian alternatives, and they're gaining power. So to me, it's very existential because all the kind of tropes of politics that we're used to, all the kind of left, right, red, blue, it's really, we're just so past that point at this time where our systems can't keep pace.
So I have a question. If you tell some people about universal basic income, like I posted on Reddit, I was actually promoting you, and I was saying vote for Jonathan Herzog, and I got some responses that really rubbed me the wrong way. They were like, "Yeah, I don't want to increase taxes on the middle class," and they just like weren't buying into universal basic income because they think that it'll take money away from them for some reason. How can we get through to these people, and like what do we make of that? Why? Yeah, like how can we get through to people who kind of reject UBI because they haven't thought it through?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, but here's the thing: we're running in the most liberal, educated district in the country, and polling just shows that a vast majority of people in liberal urban districts support UBI, and also now 76% of Americans freaking support a version of UBI during the pandemic. So we have the people on our side. It's just a matter of getting the votes now, and we need to build and keep building and keep pushing the case because. Yeah, we just got to keep fighting for it. People are waking up, and more people are realizing it's not a them issue; it's an all of us issue.
Yeah.
So one more from Chris. After Andrew Yang, who would your second choice be for our presidential nominee, and why?
Honestly, he was the only one I was inspired by, thought understood the depth of our crises and had really any path forward. I know it's pretty bleak, it's pretty unfortunate, but there was no one else I even gave a semblance of consideration. Although I did all the research and read everyone and gave them the benefit of the doubt, but there was just nothing there. There was just no substance.
Yeah.
So Andrew says, I know this may seem like a loaded question, but what motivated you to run as a Democrat as opposed to independent?
You just can't unseat. You can't win. It's just the way our party duopoly is set up. Yeah, it's tough to change the parties, but we really can only fix them from within.
Jennifer asks, what committees would you like to be a part of in Congress? Why? How would you want to make an impact on committees?
Cash money. So ways and means and appropriations, that's where the money, I mean, Congress has the power of the purse. So we got to go to where the money is and make sure it gets to the people, not to the banks, which is what Nadler and his whole cabal have been fighting for for decades. Yeah. I think I'm being told I'm supposed to hop on to the other stream, but I can come back.
Wait, which?
Oh, from the previous debate?
Yeah, because there's two other live streams I think happening, and they wanted me to kind of like hop between them, if that's all right.
Oh, sure. Yeah. When should we expect you back?
I think they wanted like a couple of minutes on Paget, a couple of minutes on Zach and Matt, and then I can come right back after that.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. We'll think of more questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys. So appreciate it. It's so fun seeing all of you.
Yes. Thanks. Well, hey guys. Well, actually, we'll just keep recording. Whatever. This is the intermission, I guess. I guess politicians are busy people.
Seems like it.
You know, when I was listening to the debate, one of the things I was very surprised about was that Nadler got AOC's endorsement. I didn't know that.
Really?
I didn't either.
I wonder.
That's what he said.
I feel like I don't really trust that. But let me look it up.
Yeah, because I only saw like in the articles that Andrew Yang endorsed him, and that was it.
No,
Nadler.
Oh, Nadler.
Nadler.
Oh.
Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh my God.
Apparently endorsed Nadler, but I don't see any. If I Google it real quick, I don't see anything that says that.
Okay, because it kind of gives him, I thought, young people's votes or cred, you know?
It's like AOC would endorse him. I mean, AOC has some conflicting things to say about Yang. I remember she actually said some nice things about him, about how he gave a lot more like awareness to like moms who don't have any income, and did a lot of good in his campaign to like bring more awareness to employing people, or not employing people, but just giving cash to people who are going to be out of a job or just don't have the money. I don't remember what else AOC said, but I don't see anything about now there.
Supported the UBI.
I think she.
Yeah, she did not support UBI, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Not in the way that like Yang or Herzog does.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like Nadler said that as like a strategy, honestly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Now that I'm eating a banana, it's starting to work. Oh, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to mute myself for now.
Okay.
The only thing I see is there's an article in Forbes that says AOC and Jerry Nadler want $4 billion in coronavirus funding. So maybe like AOC endorsed that specific thing. Like they both agree on that.
But not him.
There's no endorsement.
It's interesting, I thought.
Yeah, that isn't. You should ask him about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I did see just one, I think it was a tweet from Nadler saying he was happy to be endorsed by AOC, but of course it was the day before the only televised debate between the candidates in his district, almost as though it was to give him a little bit of attention maybe, because I haven't seen anybody else, even AOC tweet about that, even though she's announced a whole list of other local candidates that she's backing or endorsing.
Okay, so you're totally right. So Nadler like made his own graphic that says Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorses Jerry Nadler, and then quoted AOC saying, whether the issue is climate change and the Green New Deal, universal healthcare and Medicare for all, or the kind of policies that will reduce income inequality in America, Jerry Nadler is there. But that doesn't really mean anything. Like it never came from her mouth that said I endorse Jerry Nadler. She might have said something nice about him, but she could say nice things about a lot of people.
Okay.
But I don't know. Yeah. But that is interesting. If she did, that is interesting. And I wonder why she would.
And I didn't like most of the things that the female candidate said, but one thing that was interesting was about police officers being required to live in the community they're assigned to. So I was curious about his position on that.
That would never work in Jonathan's district because the police officers that work in Jonathan's district could never afford to live in Jonathan's district.
Well, that's true. So then her
Which would be an
comment
interesting
wasn't
thing
realistic.
because wouldn't that structure it so that those areas would have to collectively have the money to pay for the lifestyle of the police force that's on par with their own lifestyle? You know, in the largest, the financial capital of the world, people would have to say, you know what, we value the police being able to live right here where they work, and they're going to get paid as much as we do as hedge fund managers and the heads of large international banks and whatnot. It'd be an interesting way to spin things on its head.
Oh, that's true. Good point.
In a world where people were paid on the value of the services they provide to humanity as opposed to who they know and what they do. We get there. Excuse me. Choking down a peanut butter cup.
There's a lot of work that just like is clearly of service to society, but just like isn't paid for, and we're not really incentivized to do it.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating, yeah, because our money system is just a little flawed.
It's really flawed.
Very flawed. I feel like people have been getting a tiny taste of UBI
Right.
right now in the past couple months, or not really UBI, but something. And I wonder if that has changed the public perception of it in a way.
Oh, absolutely. Especially now that the government is giving just about everyone on unemployment an additional $600, it kind of defeats the whole "where are we going to get the money from" argument.
Right.
That's it's not just per month, it's
they
per
did
week.
I know.
Like, I know people who are getting an extra $4,000, $5,000 a month, which is crazy. That's more than they made when they were actually working.
Yeah.
And it's interesting during the debate between Nadler and Jonathan and Boylan, Nadler twice said people's income has been completely replaced. And then the next time he even said, or even more. And so I think to your point, some people who basically live paycheck to paycheck or don't even do that well, yes, they're maybe doing better under some of the provisions of the CARES Act, but then other people are completely left out of it. And it was almost like with Nadler saying that, it was almost like a little bit of a wink to like, well, if you feel like you're doing better, it's because of me. But I don't necessarily think it's just because of him. I don't think he had the idea to do all of these things. I think it's been like an incredible amount of pressure from people who said, no, we really need something that amounts to UBI. You can't just rely on the normal, like it was being pitched as the normal safety net early on, right? Like, no, like just regular state unemployment isn't going to be enough, right? What else do we need to do at the federal level?
Right. And it's all going to go away in just a month or so.
Yeah, there's going to be a
just about the
huge
end of this
vacuum at the end of July, and we're going to be like in a bigger hole than we were.
I really hope you guys, I really want you guys to like ask these questions to him, or like bring up these things when he comes back.
Bring up these concerns. Yeah.
Feel free to go hard on him. Like bring up the AOC thing.
Yeah.
Bring up anything. We don't want to ask the questions. Like,
yeah, you guys ask.
You guys can vocalize it too. It'll be more interesting that way, I think.
Yeah.
And if you all are in New York, have you gotten your absentee ballots yet, or maybe the polls?
We're in New York. She's technically
Maryland. Yeah. So.
But I got my ballot. So, and I might even go in person. I don't actually know, because we were right by a school.
That's true.
We live across the street from a school, so I don't know.
Did you double check your polling place?
No.
because mine has been the same for the last 21 years at the school around the corner, and it literally changed this election cycle to like a school 6
convenient.
blocks away.
Okay, I understand that, because one time there was one election I really wanted to vote and I couldn't vote because it was like New Jersey. I'm like, I'm not going to New Jersey. And it was like, yeah, because I grew up in New Jersey, but I really didn't want to go to New Jersey, like make a whole day trip just to go down there to vote. And it was just annoying. And then the weirdest thing was the first time I got to vote, it was the election in 2012. I was going to vote for Barack Obama. And this was like a day after Hurricane Sandy. And I had to go from New York to New Jersey. And all the buses were shut down. Everything was closed because the system was a mess because of the hurricane. It was like 10 hours delayed. By the time I made it to New Jersey to the polling location, it was closed.
Oh my God.
So literally I couldn't vote. Yeah.
This is the same kind of thing that happened after the hurricane hit New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like whole polling places, like the actual buildings that were polling places were wiped out. So then it was a matter of how do they make provisions so that people can vote, which didn't matter to most people because they were in desperate situations where they had no place to live.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's absurd. But I guess, yeah, I wish it was easier to vote. I wish you can literally, I guess people will complain that like, there's going to be security problems with this, but I really honestly wish you can go online, press a button, and then
just be
vote.
done. Yeah.
Or even
Because
just
even in person, there's hackers. You can easily hack it. I was watching like a news clip,
yeah,
and they were showing us how they could just easily do it.
yeah, and I mean, imagine how many more people would vote if you could just vote online.
And isn't that the incentive to not make it easy?
Right. Right. I literally think that like if we have 50% voter turnout now, I think that it would be like 75% if people could vote online, maybe more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With the touch of a button through their phone.
Yeah.
And it's not even like you just made the argument that it's not a security issue either, because if someone wants to interfere in an election, they're going to do it regardless of the methods that we employ to stop them. I made that same case as well. But a lot of people they're so insistent on keeping the power away from the people who need to take the power back the most. And
Right.
It's tough to see.
Right, exactly.
And isn't this all sort of the same topic of a matter of access, like access to money, right?
Yes.
Access to voting. It's a matter of like those things are putting the power in people's hands. And if you don't give people unfettered access to it, well, you get to control how much change you allow them to implement, right?
Right, right, exactly. And it feels so dated. Like the things you have to do to like even register to vote, like just for me, like anything that involves sending a letter or getting a letter, like I think that's just like asking me to go on a horse to go to school or something. I don't know.
See, I love that you guys are talking about that because Andrew Yang, I hate to beat his dead horse, but he actually had the idea to create a citizenship portal that would give those who don't have access or just aren't even able to leave the house or are too lazy to in most circumstances. I mean, sometimes I'm too lazy to go out and vote.
Yeah.
But he had the idea to put all of these important things civically related on a website. And there's actually a relatively large community of individuals who are working on that currently. So it's nice to hear people actually talking about it.
Nice, yeah. I do feel like there's a certain energy with like the Yang Gang candidates that I just really resonate with and I like a lot.
Yeah, that's why I'm here at least. Even though I'm not able to vote for him, I'll probably still toss him some money because why not?
Sure.
That's how I do vote. You know, that's how people in my position are able to vote.
Yeah, it's a good vote.
And that's important actually, because a lot of people who are running for local elections don't want to fundraise from their actual locale.
Right.
Because they feel like it affects the perception of them to their constituents.
Right. It's almost a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and it's sort of funny how that does become a conflict of interest. And I know Yang spoke about this, and I see on Jonathan's website, like he's interested in doing publicly funded elections also, because if everybody just had access to money that they knew they could spend with their local candidates, it seems like it would also take the responsibility off of the candidate to sort of mitigate that perception of whether there's a conflict of interest there or not.
Right.
Yeah,
Democracy dollars. It's brilliant.
I think that's a great idea. The idea is like everyone gets a voucher of $100, and they can only spend that on candidates, like on donating for candidates, and it's not, and you can't spend on anything else.
Oh,
So
wow,
this would, yeah, it's a great idea.
But when you give that to 300 million people in the country, that's a lot of money to be able to spend collectively, and washes out a lot of that corporate money.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm just combing through his website right now.
Nice.
I also saw, what was it? Getting rid of private prisons. That's something that I believe would be incredible as well.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Be really great.
Like, it's sad to say it, but most of these prisons are almost ran as like, they're like slave operations.
Yeah.
They take all this cheap labor and they're exploiting it. And they're not even, like, the whole point of a prison, the prison system is to, what's it called? Rehabilitate the people who need help. I mean, some people can't, the help won't ever do anything for them, but I feel like getting rid of private prisons would be a decent first step to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No, not at all. Not a lot of things do these days, do they?
Should we ask him about like who he wants as vice president, or is that kind of useless to ask him?
Jonathan?
You mean when Jonathan runs for president, or for the current presidential election?
I was saying current, but that would be an interesting question if he runs for president.
That is an interesting question.
But he's so young that he doesn't.
Yeah, I know.
He can't really qualify for president for like many years.
I can say he's got another cycle and a half in him before.
Does he have to be like 42 or something?
I think it was 36.
Oh, 36.
I think it's actually like 67.
Yeah, I think it was 78.
Say if you go by the arc of recent history, yeah, it's got to be about 67 is the minimum age.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Do you guys personally feel like it's almost pandering for Joe Biden to say that he will only, or very, very early on to say that he's going to put a woman and only a woman as his VP?
Well, I think everything Joe Biden does is a little pandering, but I like the choice. I think it's smart for multiple reasons.
It's a good political move.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's calculated, but you can't sort of fault him for that kind of calculation.
He's probably not even the one who made the decision. He probably had someone tell him to say that on stage or something.
Yeah, it just makes the most sense, and I hope he makes a good choice.
Yeah.
I think probably Elizabeth Warren would be a good choice.
I would, yeah.
Just because
I would like that.
Because I think the problem with Hillary Clinton's selection was she picked Tim Kaine, who was like boring as hell, and like exactly, yeah. Tim Kaine was like more boring than Hillary Clinton, and it really made the kind of Bernie supporters not want to support.
Yeah, and it was just not exciting to vote for them.
Yeah. Right, and I think that if Hillary Clinton might have went with like someone who like progressive people would stand by, then she might have won. Or I mean, she should have won anyway. But,
she was the personification of a cheese sandwich, so I mean, unfortunately, slightly moldy as well. But it's career politicians for you. Do you believe that Jonathan, like, he always wanted to put himself in a position of power? Or do you think that it's just he saw there was something or a lot of things that were fucked up and he decided to make the conscious decision to just run? Because when he was talking about it, it sounded like he was like, oh, things are bad. Something needs to be done.
Yeah.
I think. What do you think?
I think the latter. I think he was like, maybe I should. There's a button. Yeah, I think he just was like, yeah, I should do something about this and run for
Yeah, but
Congress.
I also think he's particularly like advantaged. Like he went to Harvard, whatever that means. He seems to be really smart and just like kind of ambitious in general, and
Right.
he probably was like he probably does want to have like some sort of position of power or something like that, or just as ambitious in general, because there's not many 25-year-olds that would just have the ability even to do this.
Right.
How
did you guys meet him? I don't recall you.
No, we never met him. This is the first time we've met him.
We just
Really?
I texted him.
Yeah.
Wow.
I cold texted him, and then he responded a week later and said, "Sure, sounds fun." So, but we do a lot of events. We've been doing. We kind of sold him on it, and we said that we run the Yang Gang Instagram channel, and we have a weekly philosophy salon. We love for you to be a guest speaker. Blah blah blah. A week later, he's like. 2 weeks later, he was like, "Yeah, I would love to." So, yeah, and then it was hard to get in touch with him because he only responded like every week. But he officially confirmed only last week, and then we officially made the event. Yeah, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Wow, it's crazy to me that someone can just say, "Hey, I'm gonna text this guy," and I wish the president was that accessible.
Right? It's kind of interesting.
In the old days where the White House had an open door policy.
That's why I like local elections too, and local politics.
Right.
I've done this a lot to a lot of different local politicians. Send cold emails or cold texts, and most of the time, I would say people get back to me, and it's cool because like not a lot of people are emailing or texting them when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people have a reason to, or they think that they're out of reach or something.
Which is strange when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because you guys did it.
Yeah, I didn't know he would respond, but I was hoping he would.
That's always promising.
What?
That's always promising.
Yeah.
Do you think that accessibility would change once he becomes a congressman?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, to some degree, of course it would, but...
Yeah, I think it would definitely.
Yeah.
But I think right now, it kind of all just made sense. Like, we also run the NYC Gang Instagram channel. And we've been doing events for a while, virtual events. And there's not a lot of other people that are like doing this and that would ask him to do something like this, I think.
So what do you guys personally have to gain from all of this? And I know the way I phrased that made it seem like you're out to get something, which obviously that's not what I mean.
No,
like, what are your dogs in this proverbial fight?
Dogs, yeah. We like the positioning, kind of. Like, we like Helen slash Jonathan Herzog is back in the game.
Hello again. So sorry about that. Wow.
Okay.
What
were you just on? So we can check it out later.
Oh, totally. They just told me I had to go to Paget. They're telling me to do this whole freaking YouTube tour. You guys are
that's so cool. All right, awesome. Yeah. Well, we're having a really fun conversation, and I think we have some more questions to ask you for sure. Jennifer had some things to say. Jennifer.
Yeah. I was watching the debate on NY-10, and I noticed a couple of times that Representative Nadler suggested that with the CARES Act that that people were getting a complete replacement of their income, and sometimes even more, he said at one point. So I'm just wondering, I know you're probably limited in how much you could respond to in the debate, but I'm just wondering if you had any ideas or thoughts on him stating that, and how you might have responded to that if there'd been more time.
Yeah, I mean, he is just wrong. I mean, he clearly does not get these benefits. He clearly does not have to wait in line or wait on call for unemployment benefits. He, yeah, I mean, he just clearly didn't get it, and it's really tragic. I mean, I assume he believes it, you know, but yeah, I mean, anyone who thinks the system is working is out of their mind.
We had a question, Eugen left, but she was saying that, like, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is really influential. She's really powerful, and she's apparently, according to Jerry Nadler, says that she endorses him. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just called politics. You know, you find strange bedfellows, and depending on depending on the time of day and the week and the year, and you see people, you know, changing all sorts of things, whether that be positions or endorsements or what have you. So, I mean, to me, it's yeah, like, what else is new?
So
we'd also talked a little bit about access to voting, and because we were talking about getting absentee ballots amidst coronavirus, and we were talking about, even before this, issues with getting access to polls and having to vote out of state and things like that. So we sort of went down the road of, like, voting online. So what ideas do you have about changing our voting system so there's more access?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much we have to do. I mean, we're in a country where you can barely even vote by mail. And we're talking about a country that's in the midst of a global pandemic where nearly 120,000 people have died. So before we even get to blockchain voting, and before we even get to smartphone voting, we need to have equal access to the ballot to be able to vote universal, vote by mail for all, universal early voting, make election day a freaking holiday, automatic voter registration. There's so much low-hanging fruit that, I mean, our elected officials are literally trying to cancel primaries. So we first have to be able to vote securely, vote safely, and one of the first steps forward is to be able to universally vote by mail.
Do you see any like positives that have come in the last 3 months from kind of the government's ability to, like, give everyone a stimulus check and maybe give people pandemic unemployment or pandemic assistance? Do you think any of that will be sustainable and will lead to some, like, kind of lasting change?
I think the general thing I'd say on this is there's nothing inevitable. You know, and I saw this at every turn in the journey of the Yang presidential campaign. There is nothing inevitable. There are literally just people. There's just us. There's ideas that some of us put out there, and then there's people acting and organizing on those ideas. Nothing more. There's no natural order. There's no teleology. There's no inevitable conclusion to how history evolves. And it's kind of scary, but it's also pretty empowering, because if enough of us manage to organize and activate and mobilize around a set of ideas, we can get them done. But there's no guarantee. History does not go in a straight line, nor is it a predictable pendulum. If you had told someone, as some people did, but if you had told someone in mainstream news or politics or media 3 months ago that just a couple of days ago in June or in late May in New York, they would not be able to leave their home after 8, could not rent a city bike, could not do a Lyft or Uber rideshare, their city would be burning under riots, stores would be boarded up, half of the district would have fled, and tens of thousands would be dead, tens of millions. They say you're insane. But they would actually be grounded in reality. So there's nothing inevitable about what comes of this crisis, what comes of this moment. It could get 10 times worse, or it could get 100 times better. It's up to us.
What do you make of all these protests?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming, and you know, we watched murder in cold blood before our eyes, so of course we're gonna feel outrage, and this deep-seated sense that in some ways nothing has changed, and so they're critical. I mean, the only way we've ever had real structural change in policing and criminal justice and civil rights for decades has been through nonviolent civil disobedience and nonviolent protest. So yeah, I mean, they're already having an impact. Like, they're already having an impact here in New York. They repealed 50A, which had obscured policing violations from the public record. And although it's just a first step, the Justice and Policing Act is passing through the House, which is going to end qualified immunity. It's going to, I think, ban neck holds and choke holds and other excessive force. And you're like, wait, what? How do we not ban that already? How is, like, that's literally insane. Like, that's just unimaginable. But I mean, these fights take decades, they take centuries, and it's again, it's just all of us. It's all of us stepping up and making it happen.
Just one more question. What is the biggest difference between, or what do you think is the biggest difference between you and Jerry Nadler?
Biggest difference is that Jerry Nadler bails out banks, and I want to bail out people. Pretty plain and simple. You saw this in the 2008 financial crisis. You see it now. It really comes down to just that. Do you bail out the banks or do you bail out the people? I know which side I fall on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. It was really a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
We're really glad you took the time to do this.
I so appreciate it. So sorry for the rude interlude. I feel very bad about it. They were just yelling at me.
We all bonded. So.
But so appreciate it. Keep it up. Please stay safe, take care, and keep doing it. I love it.
Thank you. All right. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
We'll vote for you.
Thank you.
Peace out. You have my $100.
Oh my gosh, wow. Well, thank you. Guys, freaking vote, and please tell all your friends. Like, we can literally win this thing. We get 2% of all people. We get 15,000 votes. We have won the seat.
Awesome. We'll do everything we can in the next week.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.